Hello, fellow gamers. Wow, 2 years of YouTube. And what do I have to show for it? In all seriousness, though, I wanted to go ahead and just do something for you guys, something that I haven't done in a while. Uh, Something that isn't gaming, but is gaming. Kind of like my Take 5 series in a way, if you will. But, this video is a bit different. I decided that I wanted to review every Five Nights at Freddy's game. That includes Fnaf 6. That does not include Fnaf World, though. Why I wanted to do this? I want to do something for you guys. I mean, I've been on YouTube for 2 years now, and I figured it'd be nice to get something out around the holidays. So I figured I'd go ahead and make this, and with that being said, let's get started. Fnaf 1. I'll just go ahead and say it. Fnaf 1 is my favorite in the series, hands down. Now before you pull out your torches and pitchforks, let me at least explain why. First of all, at the time of Fnaf 1's release, it was a fresh take on the horror genre. There were not horror games like it. It's crazy to think that now, but almost 3 years ago, that was the case. Fnaf 1 was its own game. It was an original idea. It also has great gameplay and great ideas. Like I said, it was a fresh take on the horror genre, meaning that its ideas were very unique as well. It was just a really good experience because it was something new that people didn't expect. And when it finally did take off, it grew almost, if not more so popular than maybe Minecraft. I don't know, more people have probably still heard of Minecraft, but its gameplay too is very well made. I won't be going over specifics, but the gameplay itself is wonderfully cooperative in terms of being against you. Because, the power mechanic, well, you can't drain too much power, but you gotta use the doors to keep the animatronics out, so you just can't use them all the time. But you gotta use the cameras to see where the animatronics are, but the cameras take power. It's a constant cycle of balancing your power between making sure you survive. Because if you lose your power, then you die too, so yeah. My next point is, it has an expertly crafted sense of dread. There's something about Fnaf 1 in particular that just makes it much more bone-chilling than the other games in the series. Fnaf 6 comes close in a lot of ways, but I feel like Fnaf 1 still does it the best. I think this because its ambience is perfect. It's not too many sound effects, but it's not complete silence. Example of sound effects constantly, Fnaf 2, it had a lot of sound, but that game was mostly focused on gameplay and a little bit of lore. And Fnaf 4 was completely silent, for most of it at least. Sister Location had a lot of quiet moments too, but not as bad, because sound wasn't required really in that game. But Fnaf 1 is different because its ambience makes you feel like, there's something out there. There's always that feeling that something's out there, whereas in Fnaf 2, it's more like you know something's out there, and in Fnaf 4, you're trying to listen to hear if something's out there. Whereas instead, Fnaf 1 focuses on how terrified you are of something being out there, rather than how to handle it. And my last point is its hidden images give Easter eggs and replayability. I don't know if you guys remember these, but like the rare screens, like when, say for example, the Freddy poster in West Camera 2B, something like that, the one where Golden Freddy would appear. Do you remember how, well, first of all, how that poster would change to Golden Freddy, but also how, like, sometimes Freddy's head would come off as like an Easter egg, like it looked like he pulled it off? That secret screens like that are really what make this game different than the rest in the series. FNAF 2 and FNAF 3 have them, but they aren't as creepy for reasons I don't really know. But FNAF 1 just has that feeling of severe dread that it makes the hidden images even more creepy and just adds to it. I'm sure everyone remembers in FNAF 1 when Bonnie would go backstage and go like right up to the camera. That's a secret screen too. Not very hard to see, but um, it can be somewhat common. But so, moments like that make you feel that dread, that slowly build it up, slowly but surely, until the jump scare gets you and you fly back out of your chair because the game was building up to it the entire time. These reasons are why I think FNAF 1 is really just an excellent game, and honestly a much better, a big step above the rest. Huh, good old FNAF 2. This one is praised as probably the best game in the series, or praised as such. Personally, I can see why people like it, but like I said before, FNAF 1 is still probably my favorite. And there's one other game in the series I like just a bit more than FNAF 2 now. But I will admit that FNAF 2 is a very good game on its own. It's fun but difficult gameplay or feels really rewarding when you finally complete it. But at the same time, it feels just a bit like this is completely unfair. Like, there's certain points where the difficulty is just a bit too much, I think. But I assure you, this game is not even close to being the hardest in the series. Not even close. Um, it did bring about two things that I think really helped out the community in a lot of ways and are still some of the more positive aspects of the community today, which is its new characters that it brought along, such as Balloon Boy, the puppet, the withered animatronics, the toy animatronics. Everyone remembers them now. They are iconic at this point. Even Golden Freddy, kind of. Like, all the characters from FNAF 2 in general, I feel like are the ones that I see the most in, like, say, clickbait thumbnails on YouTube and such. But, that's not a bad thing. That just means they're popular characters and people like them. But FNAF 2, I think, also brought around fan games. And while they weren't good at first, they slowly but surely have started to become better than the main series in general, with my personal favorite being Joy of Creation. You should definitely check it out. Markiplier's done a playthrough on his channel. FNAF 2 in general, though, is really good, and the only other thing I can really say about it is that the community was still pretty good around this time, too. The community was still normal-ish, or at least not as bad as it is now. I don't think it really started to change until FNAF 3 was announced. Oh, FNAF 3. What can I say about you that people haven't already said? The gameplay mechanics are not interesting. Not even a little. They don't feel like they combine very well, and it's very easy to just Springtrap in a random place. I mean, even I did it. It made the game very easy or very difficult. Because if you knew the trick to keep Springtrap in the same spot, then it wasn't a hard game at all. It was very easy. But if you couldn't figure it out, the game became very frustrating. And it didn't help that the gameplay mechanics weren't that fun. So it makes it even more frustrating in that sense. Also, Springtrap really gets moving a lot. He moves around a lot, so if you don't end up keeping him in the same spot, it can be very annoying to try to find him, let alone frustrating when you die because you couldn't find him because the phantoms keep getting in the way. But if there's anything I will say about this game, it's that Springtrap was definitely the best thing to come out of it. Still a great character for the series and great for the lore. And the Phantom animatronics don't look too bad either. And it did a lot for the lore too. But FNAF 3 in general just felt really rushed in terms of how it looked, how it played. it didn't feel as fine-tuned as the previous two games, and especially not as fine-tuned as the first one. But that would all change when the next game, Fnaf 4, would come out not too far after. Fnaf 4. What an interesting setting. In a child's bedroom. Interesting choice. And when we finally figure out why we're in a child's bedroom, it makes perfect sense too, and it's actually a really nice touch. The new setting is definitely the highlight here. You're no longer a security guard in an office watching a pizzeria or horror attraction. You're a kid in his bedroom fighting off the nightmares. That's it. That's all there is to it. But this game does something different from other FNAF games in the sense of its sound. It implements sound extremely well, but can also make the game extremely challenging. Not only is it pretty much impossible to even make it past night 1 if you don't use sound, but it's also just a really hard game in general. I definitely want to say it's one of the hardest, if not the hardest game in the series, mostly just because of its mechanics. It feels very... Freddy and Foxy aren't so much the problems as they are Bonnie and Chica. Trying to figure out when you can hear their breathing is very crucial, and sometimes even the slightest mishap in listening can cause the difference between living and dying. Also, when you get around to night 5 and up or so, Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare especially can be very frustrating to deal with as they're just really hard bosses. And I definitely call Nightmare a mini boss to the series, or a final boss, I guess. The gameplay is still fun though. It's a unique idea in a unique setting with an extreme amount of challenge to it. And this game is not scary. Unlike FNAF 3, which was kind of lacking by that point, FNAF 4 really upped the scare factor, and honestly, I haven't even made it past night 1. That's how afraid I am to play FNAF 4. However, from what I've seen in other playthroughs, FNAF 4 doesn't seem to have much replayability. After you figure out all the lore, which might I also say FNAF 4 did a lot for the series in that aspect in terms of lore, it's, once you know all the lore and have played through the entire game and done all the gameplay, there's no real reason to go back to it. And I think this is mostly because of how frustrating the game is by the time you fight the final, nights and such. 2020 mode, from what I've heard, is also very frustrating, mostly because of Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare, but that's only what I've heard. Oh, and the Halloween update. All I'm gonna say is lazy. Very clearly lazy. All it is are reskins of the previous animatronics. Although I do like the implementation of the extra stuff where you can check out the map and where the animatronics are, I think it's very lazy to just retexture each animatronic. The movements aren't even really different, they just look like different characters. Anyways, while FNAF 4 was very widely liked by a lot of the community, it didn't really keep the series alive for a while. But then Scott teased his next game in the series, Sister Location. Good old Sister Location. Everyone and their mother saw this one. Everyone. People adore this game. Fans of the series adore this game at the very least. What's my opinion about it? It's not bad. I wish it was longer and not so structured in terms of how it plays, but what you do play is very good and feels very story-like. And I love the twist at the end of it, at least of the regular ending. It just adds that much more to the game. I'm not sure what it was though, but something about this game in particular just felt missing. It felt very not part of the main series, although I think that was kind of the point. But if there's anything I can say about Sister Location, it's that there's some parts in the game that are flat out too easy, and there's other parts in the game where it's flat out too hard. Night 4 is probably all I need to say for that part. And the cupcake minigame, from what I've heard, are very frustrating parts. And Ennard, or at least the Night 5 bonus night. All I'm gonna say is, from what I've seen, it looks quite challenging, and I wouldn't want to attempt it myself. It looks like when you get to around 4 a.m., 5 a.m., you have to have very good reflexes. Oh, and the custom night. Not bad. I really wish that Scott would have added Baby in there. I don't know why she wasn't in there. Kind of makes less sense when in Fnaf 6, spoiler alert, when Baby ends up being in that game as an enemy that can kill you too, when she's not in the game that she debuted in. I just find that a bit strange. Before I move on to Fnaf 6 though, or Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, I thought I would mention one more thing about Fnaf 4 and Sister Location that really bugged me. The jump scares. No. Come on. Gosh. It's on the door. Both Fnaf 4 and Sister Location have a lot of jump scares. A lot. I'm not sure if... I can't even think straight now. Compared to the first 3 games in the series, Fnaf 4 and Sister Location on their own, I believe, have more combined jump scares than the original 3 trilogy. I know that's not a big deal, but I almost feel like it's a bit more clickbaity in that aspect of, I feel like Scott's adding more jump scares now just because he thinks that's what people want to see. And while I'm sure some people do, I'm not a big fan of it. Although I'll admit I like the jump scares in a lot of aspects, especially Sister Locations, I think there is a fine line between too little and too many. Fnaf 6, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Huge surprise. I don't think anyone saw this game coming, or at least they didn't expect it to be Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Not only is it a huge surprise that it even came out to begin with, but it's completely free on Steam. So anyone, and I really mean anyone with a computer right now, can go play it. Well, unless you have a Mac, like me, in which case then you have to use crossover, but whatever. It's still a really good game. I was really surprised that it wasn't mentioned by Scott at all, and from the time of recording this video, which is around December 10th, I find it strange that he still hasn't really mentioned it on his sites or anything. Sure, it's out, but he hasn't said anything about it. It wasn't mentioned by Scott that it was coming out, wasn't teased, but I can see why. I feel like this game is similar to Fnaf 3 in a lot of ways, in the sense that had it gotten the hype that Fnaf 3 had gotten, it would have been a terrible game, or at least dubbed terrible by the fans. Not because of its gameplay. No. Its gameplay is probably the best it's been since Fnaf 1. It's horror, too. But I just feel like Fnaf 6 is kind of subpar in terms of quality compared to the other games in the series. I don't know what it is. Everything about the game looks nice. The whole pizzeria part, the first half of the day, it looks really good. Everything there, the textures and characters and whatever, everything looks fine. Then even the night, when you get to the night and actually start doing gameplay on that, everything looks good. Up until you get jump scared. Anytime you get jump scared, and I mean anytime, the jump scares look really cheap and fan game like. I'm not quite sure why, but they just look rushed slash not very good at all. I'll admit that they look. I really like the design of the animatronics. I think the characters themselves look cool, but seeing them in motion and their jump scare sounds in general, they just don't work. Not only that, but they're on screen for about second and a half when they jump scare you. That doesn't sound like long, but 1/1000, that long. They're on screen for that long, and it feels a bit off because other games in the series, like say FNAF 1, they were on for not very long at all. Almost like, hey, the second they jump scared you, game over. Unlike in FNAF 6, where it feels like when they jump scare you, they gotta hold for a second so that you can get a good look at them, even though you shouldn't have to, and it doesn't make sense anyways. But I will say about FNAF 6 that it has completely unique gameplay to the rest of the series. The pizzeria making process and the different endings add a whole new level of replayability to the series that wasn't achievable before with other games, and the animatronics in general look very creative. Yet some of them just don't look like they were made by Scott. Honestly, I swear, Springtrap's jump scare honestly looks like it could come from Fazbear Fright, if you guys remember that fan game. But that's just me. So, what's my final take on the series as a whole? I don't think the games are as bad as people say, not even close. But there are some low points in the series that I'll definitely agree with on. FNAF 3 is definitely FNAF 3 is definitely the worst game in the series, but every other game in this series isn't bad. FNAF 3 is on its own level of bad, whereas the rest of them are good to amazing. Um, so if I really had to rank the games in general, I would say that the sixth best is FNAF 3. The fifth best is, I'm only gonna say Sister Location because it's not very long of a game in general in terms of its gameplay, and it's not really replayable. Fourth best would be FNAF 4, only because I haven't played it, but again, that's just my personal opinion. You don't have to take it to heart. Third best, FNAF 2. I have played that one quite a lot, and it's fun. I like the gameplay, it's fun and challenging, and I like the characters and the fan games that came from it. Second place would be FNAF 6. Yep. Even though I criticized how the jump scares look, something that's been a big selling point for the series for a while, I personally don't mind it as much. Mostly because if you remember when I bashed FNAF 4 and Sister Location for having way too many jump scares each, having about twice as many as the previous games, well, FNAF 6 has about maybe 5, 6 unique animatronics with 2 jump scares each. So about as many jump scares as FNAF 2, which feels about right. It's about where it should be. It feels like a perfect number. That's that's not the only reason I like FNAF 6 though. The gameplay is very unique, it's very replayable, it's just a fun game in general. It has a lot of moments where you can actually calm down and not be terrified the entire game, because I will admit, this game did bring back the dread of FNAF 1, but I still think FNAF 1 does it just a little bit better, if only because FNAF 6 has the more calmer sections of its game that also change how you act when you play it. And of course, the best in the series, in my opinion, is FNAF 1. With with it being a unique take on the horror genre when it came out, its great gameplay and ideas, its expertly crafted sense of dread, and its hidden images give Easter eggs and replayability, I can safely say that FNAF 1 is my favorite in the series. Whew. It's been a wild ride with you guys. I'm not going to slow down anytime soon, and I only hope that I can keep chucking along with this channel. I know I haven't uploaded much, but I really hope to actually be serious with YouTube soon. I just am not sure when. But I'll keep you guys posted on what's going on with the channel, and I hope you all enjoyed this video, and have yourself a Merry Christmas. Until next video, goodbye, fellow gamers.